Well, welcome to today's talk, Sunday the 5th of February. Now, we want answers as to why more people are dying than usual. The excess deaths are high, and we want a breakdown of all the possibilities that could be causing these excess deaths. Now, this is Esther McVey in the British Parliament speaking on this matter. Let's just listen to it. Fairly brief clip.
Public health.
Mr. McVey.
Mr. Speaker, the Chief Medical Officer recently warned that current non-COVID excess deaths is being driven in part by patients not getting statins or blood pressure medicines during the pandemic. But when looking at the data on statins in openprescribing.net, which is based on monthly NHS prescribing, there appears not to be a drop. So where is the evidence? And if there isn't one, what is causing these excess deaths? Will the Minister commit to an urgent and thorough investigation on the matter?
Well, we are seeing an increase in excess deaths in this country, but we're also seeing that in Wales, in Scotland, in Northern Ireland and across Europe. And there are a range of factors. There is an increase, as we saw in December, in the number of people being admitted with flu, with COVID and with other healthcare conditions. And this is not something that's just seen in this country, but across Europe as well.
Bridget.
Well, Esther McVey looking somewhat bewildered by that answer. Now, the report where Chris Whitty, the Chief Medical Officer, talks about this is in this technical review published back in December, and we did look at this in some detail at the time. So what we need to do now is check on what is it true? So the Chief Medical Officer is saying that the excess deaths are caused partly by statins and blood pressure medicines not being available during the pandemic. So that's where he says it. Is it true? Well, this is lipid regulating drugs, which are the statin type drugs. So here we have January 19, here we have January 20, so the start of the pandemic there. So this was prescribing before the pandemic, this was prescribing during the pandemic, and there's probably, if anything, up to July 2022, we have a slight increase. So we can see there quite clearly that lipid regulating drugs such as statins, the actual uptake through the pandemic increased slightly, didn't decrease slightly. So it means Esther McVey is right and the Chief Medical Officer's wrong. How can the Chief Medical Officer get this wrong? It really does beg a credibility that he got this wrong. There's the data. And that's lipid lowering drugs. Now, as regards hypertension and heart failure, again, so we've got January 2020 there. So this is before the pandemic. This is during the pandemic all the way up to 2022. And again, we see there's no reduction in medication for hypertension either. So Esther McVey is completely correct in what she's saying there. No question about it. Now, let's look at this in a little more detail. So the technical report's there from Chris Whitty. The data is showing that he's inaccurate. So does this bring into question the competence of the Chief Medical Officer? I mean, no one's suggesting he's being deliberately disingenuous, of course, but he should have known that. He should have been able to check that data before we put it in his technical report. To me, not acceptable. You know, these are people that we trusted implicitly through the pandemic, the Chief Medical Officer and the Chief Scientific Officer. Let's hope they're not letting us down. Now, the data that we've just looked at there, open prescribing, run by Oxford University. Cholesterol meds did not go down during the pandemic. There's the evidence. Blood pressure meds were not taken less frequently during the pandemic. There's the evidence. Now, Esther McVey called for an urgent and thorough investigation. And the Minister actually said, well, this isn't just a problem in England. This is a problem in Wales, Scotland, Ireland and throughout the world, throughout Europe. I mean, what kind of answer is that? Yes, it's a problem. That's why we want the answer to this. So to call for an urgent and thorough review is completely reasonable. Now, the reasons that the Minister gave there, flu and COVID, we know they don't account for the excess deaths. But she mentioned other health conditions. Well, yeah, people have other health conditions and that can cause their death. So what the Minister said there was completely nonsensical. Now, the Minister concerned is actually Maria Caulfield, who I've actually got a bit of time for Maria Caulfield, really. She's the Parliamentary Under Secretary of State. First question there is, why wasn't the Minister of Health answering the question? Because this is a pretty serious matter. Now Maria Caulfield didn't do philosophy, politics and economics at Oxbridge, and she wasn't a parliamentary private intern as far as I know. She came up the hard way. She was a clinical nurse, so she knows what sick people and wounds and things smell like. She knows the reality of it. And yet she could say things that were so patently ridiculous, essentially saying this isn't a problem because it's everywhere. Her answer was nonsensical. So I can't impugn motives onto her, but I just wonder, given the whole resources of the civil service that she had at her disposal, whether Marie Caulfield actually agrees with Esther McVey and just had to toe the government line. Don't know, just thinking out loud there, really. But the reasons she gave do not account for the excess deaths, because we know these are excess deaths in addition to COVID. Yes, influenza will count for a few, but other health conditions probably account for the vast majority. And to say that people are ill because they have other health conditions is just preposterous. But that's where we're at. So answers definitely needed. You and me, I think, agree with Esther McVey. Urgent and thorough investigation required, because this is all over the place. Now, let's look at a report now from the European Parliament. This is from the special committee set up by the European Parliament. This is from Christine Anderson, member of the European Parliament, who's a member of the special committee on the COVID pandemic, lessons learned and recommendations for the future. So over to this committee now.
Yeah, you may have heard things are unfolding rather quickly right now, thanks to our colleague Rob Ross, who raised the question in the COVID committee, and the Pfizer representative, answered in quite a clear way. So we all know now that people have been lied to. It was a gigantic lie, and on this lie, everything that governments, especially in the Western democracies, did to infringe on people's rights, to take away their freedom, to lock them in their homes, imposing curfews. All of this was based on that gigantic lie. And I can only thank my colleagues. We are doing an incredible job in this COVID committee. And we will get to the bottom of things, and we will get the answers that the people that you deserve. We will work on that, and we will continue to work on that. But, and that is the other message, none of that would have been possible to do if we did not have the massive, enormous support of you, the people. Because you took to the street, you showed your governments that you will not put up with this and you will not stand for this. And for that, I really thank you and I applaud you, and I will do so right now. This applause was for you, the people, because we can only do so much if we do not have the support of you, the people. And as you may have heard, Ursula von der Leyen, EU Commission President, is now under a lot of pressure, and rightly so. The people have a right to know what went on in these contracts with her exchange of SMS with Pfizer Bourla. The people need to know who they can hold responsible and accountable for whatever may have gone on behind the scenes. So, yes, thank you again. It was your support that kept us going and that made all of this possible. And things are changing now. Their house of cards is tumbling down, and it is doing so rightfully. And you know what? One more thing, though. I am sick and tired of being called a COVIDiot. And I much rather be a COVIDiot than being a idiot. Because that's what all these people blindly trust. Because that's what all these people that blindly trusted their governments turned out to be. And I will say it again, it was never, never ever about public health. It was never about breaking any waves. It was always about breaking people. But, and that's the good news, they failed. It didn't work. And that I am very proud of, and I'm proud of the people that I am so honored to be allowed to represent, and I will continue to do just that. Thank you very much.
So there we go. They were the views of Christine Anderson, member of the European Parliament in Germany, a member of the Special Committee of the on the COVID-19 pandemic, lessons learned and recommendations for the future. And of course, we couldn't possibly be in a position to comment on the content of what she said there, but I thought you'd be interested in seeing it. You know, it's great that our elected representatives still have freedom of speech, or relative freedom of speech. It's a pity all of us don't enjoy the same privilege. But for now, thank you for watching.